Welcome everyone to NoDQ&A video right here on NoDQ.com, of course, and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Aaron Rift NoDQ or NoDQ.com/YouTube. Easy access to the NoDQ YouTube channel. This is the official Q&A video series of NoDQ.com. Back once again. Shout out to everybody watching this, whether it's live or on demand. I very much appreciate your viewership and support. Now, let's get into the questions. I have email questions, many left over from last time, but I have even more questions on top of that. Plus, of course, super chats are always very much appreciated, and they will take priority. If you send in a super chat live, I will go straight to that question. Thank you again for all your support. Now, longtime No DQ columnist, Mr. Tito, sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Tito. This is the first one of the evening. Mr. Tito sent in $2 and says, "Why won't you attend the Royal Rumble with me?" and has the laughing emojis. I'm sure many of you out there know that the Royal Rumble is very expensive. WWE keeps raising the ticket prices. I will be in Indianapolis Royal Rumble weekend, but at this time, I have not committed to attending the show in person for a couple of reasons. Number one, I've done stadium shows. They're fun, but unless you're really close, you're basically looking at a screen for the whole show. Second, I have my job. I do the live results on NoDQ.com, and then I do the live stream afterwards. Trying to do all of that work at the venue is difficult, especially if there's a bad internet connection. Third, the price. I really do not want to spend $400 or $500 on a seat for the Royal Rumble when I can be very comfortable at an Airbnb watching the show. But Tito, I would love to meet up with you. Let's make it happen. I'm putting it out there. We got to make it happen that weekend. We can finally meet up in person, and I will make sure your face doesn't get seen. We'll keep your identity a secret with everyone. But thank you, Tito. Make sure you guys check out Tito's columns over on NoDQ.com. He's been on a roll, posting a lot of stuff, and right now he's not even the most controversial opinions contributor on NoDQ.com. Thanks for everything you've done, Tito. Much love and appreciation to you. Now, let's get to an email question. This one comes from Jeremy Dorset. This one is regarding Randy Orton, who has been gone since Kevin Owens took him out of action in storyline. He says, "Hey, Aaron, is Randy Orton going to make his return at the Royal Rumble, interfere in the ladder match, costing Kevin Owens the WWE title? Also, is WWE teasing a potential Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn match at WrestleMania after Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton at Elimination Chamber?" All right, so let's start with Randy Orton. I think there's a very good chance we see him at the Royal Rumble. You really want to kick in the build-up for WrestleMania. Orton has been out selling the attack from Kevin Owens. I could see that as a possibility, either that or immediately after the match. I do think we will see Randy Orton, and Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens is inevitable, and I believe it will happen sometime in the near future. It's just a matter of, will they do it at Elimination Chamber, as you mentioned, or will they wait and save it for WrestleMania? Now, WWE did do a little tease. Kevin Owens did bring up Sami Zayn. That's always a possibility that we get Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn at WrestleMania and they do the Randy Orton match sooner. But I feel like with all the buildup with Randy Orton, they should probably do the match at WrestleMania, do Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn when you have more time to build up the story. Obviously, they have a lot of history, so you could just do that match right away. But I think they should do the Randy Orton Kevin Owens match for WrestleMania, considering how much time they've already put into that storyline, and there's the anticipation for it. But we'll see what happens. I do think it will be one of those two matches. Now, we do have super chats here. I will get to those now. First one from Hamp Connell. Shout out to Hamp, who always sends in historical comments. Today in history, 2003, Kurt Angle defends the WWE Championship against Chris Benoit in a classic, and Triple H defends the world title versus Scott Steiner in a stinker. That was 22 years ago, that Royal Rumble. I mentioned this on Twitter/X. Chris Benoit versus Kurt Angle, one of the all-time great Royal Rumble matches. If you can overlook what happened with Chris Benoit, at least to be able to enjoy a match, that's a good one to go back and watch. That was an all-time classic for sure. And yeah, Triple H versus Scott Steiner was very disappointing. Scott Steiner, unfortunately, was a shell of his former self. He was botching moves in the ring, and the crowd quickly turned on the match. It was what it was. Shout out to Hamp Connell. Thank you for that. And now Psycho Jet Black sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Psycho Jet Black. I appreciate it. Says, does Corey Graves want to have a match against Pat McAfee at WrestleMania? I just don't see Triple H doing filler matches at WrestleMania with announcers. Who knows what's going on with Corey Graves? Some people think it's a work. Some people think it's a shoot. My opinion is, if it is a work, it's an odd one to be posting about the company and make people think that WWE is treating Corey Graves poorly in this new era. It's an odd storyline. Of course, it could be a shoot that they turn into a work and they do go that route. I could see Pat McAfee having a match at WrestleMania, and of course, Corey Graves could potentially come back, maybe at the Royal Rumble. We'll see what happens. They could do that match, but like you said, there's only so many matches you can book at WrestleMania without it becoming overbloated. Pat McAfee, he might be in a better spot going against another celebrity personality, maybe a Logan Paul or something like that, where you can get the mainstream headlines. I think that Corey Graves versus Pat McAfee would be fun for wrestling fans, but I don't necessarily think that match would get a lot of publicity. I think if you were going to do a match with Pat McAfee, you would want to put him in there with a more mainstream name, like a Logan Paul or something like that, if they even have Pat McAfee do a match at WrestleMania. But could they potentially do something at another show? I think that might be more of a possibility, but we'll see. I mean, this could turn out to be a storyline, and they're either working us now or they're going to work us at some point. Thank you, Psycho Jet Black. Much love and appreciation to you. Mr. Tito sent in a $2 super chat, says, how excited are you for Donald Trump's inauguration? Oh, man, I'm just thrilled for that one. I mean, regardless of who won the election, I would not really have much interest. If Kamala Harris won, I wouldn't have that much interest. My interest level would be about the same, which is very little in either of them, in any kind of politics at this point. Donald Trump, WWE Hall of Famer. He saved TikTok. There you go. He's the most popular man in the country right now because he saved TikTok. But he needs to fix the situation with CapCut, which is a video editing program that I've used and I still use to this day. That has been banned. TikTok is back. That's been banned, and I would like that to come back. So get on it, Mr. Trump. Enough of the politics. Tiger sent in a €2 super chat. Thank you, Tiger. Much appreciation. Says, can you name the locker room leader in WCW, NXT, and AEW? For AEW, I would say it's Chris Jericho. He's the seasoned veteran, and he's been there alongside Tony Khan. Bryan Danielson, I think, would be another contender for that role, working behind the scenes now in AEW, another veteran. Jon Moxley, too. Those guys would be the ones in AEW. NXT is harder to answer because most of your roster consists of rookies. I mean, I would say that the people that they bring in for mini runs in NXT before he got, well, not let go, but before his contract expired, somebody like Baron Corbin probably would have been a locker room leader during that run, since he was the seasoned veteran and had the experience. And WCW, the running joke is that they did not really have a locker room leader, and it was the inmates running the asylum, and nobody was really taking charge backstage. You know, they were all in it for themselves, and there wasn't really that one guy that was the voice of reason. Maybe if there was that guy, things wouldn't have gotten so out of control in WCW, and maybe somehow they would have survived. It's one of those big what if questions. But interesting question there, Tiger. Thank you for that one. Now, let's get to an email question from TJS. TJS said, in your opinion, who is the worst WWE World Champion in history? And no, you can't say JBL. Don't worry, I wasn't going to say JBL. He was all right. I personally did not like him that much as a character, nor did I think his title reign was great, but he did hold it for a long time, and he was their top heel. He did reinvent himself. I just wasn't a big fan of the gimmick. I would say Vince McMahon, just for the fact that he wasn't a wrestler. He won the title by a fluke because of outside interference. Michael Wayne has a great answer. Jinder Mahal. Really. They gave Jinder Mahal the WWE Championship so they could expand their presence in India. That's what it was done for. And as soon as he lost that title, he got downgraded very quickly. They gave him the U.S. title for a little bit, but his career almost went right back to where it was pre-WWE title. And the thing is, I don't even hate Jinder Mahal all that much. I wouldn't say I hate him at all. As a matter of fact, I talk about this all the time when he's brought up. Right before he won the WWE title, he went on Talking Smack, and he cut this great promo, and he was just speaking from the heart and talking like a real person. But then they had him do the stereotypical heel coming out there and doing the kind of, in a way, an anti-American gimmick. And it was boring. Like, if they had let him be himself, maybe he could have gone in a different direction and maybe had more longevity as a top guy organically. It just felt very forced. So yeah, Jinder Mahal overall, I would say worst WWE champion in history. Vince, if you want to count Vince, then we'll say Vince, just because it was basically a joke. It was done just so Vince could say he was WWE champion. Let's be real here. All right, got this one here from Ian, who's been participating in the chat room. Thank you for the email, Ian. Says, hey, Aaron, hope your Martin Luther King Day weekend is going well. It is. Thank you. Says, is it just me, or has the women's U.S. title mid-card division been lackluster? He says he feels like we need to move away from the Michin-Chelsea Green feud and add more star power to the U.S. championship. I agree with you on it. Michin has never really been pushed strongly, and yes, she has gotten a bit of a push in this storyline, but both her and Chelsea Green have almost been booked for a low level all this time. They were booked at a low level for so long that it's really hard to get into them, even at a mid-card level. Like Chelsea Green was losing all the time, and basically she wins when somebody slips on a banana peel or you get some outside interference. And Michin was barely getting on TV for a while. So yeah, they definitely need some more people in the mix. We might get Piper Niven versus Chelsea Green at some point, but I would like to see more people coming after that championship. Right now, it just feels like it's the two of them feuding for that title, and there's no other division really. Like there's nothing else going on. So they need to work on that. But this was the problem with introducing more titles. You already struggled to make the other championships relevant, and now you got another one, and you're trying to build a division. But even with 3 hours, you seemingly don't have enough time to do that. So I do agree with you that it is feeling lackluster for sure. Got another email here from Jeremy Dorset. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it. Jeremy said, my original predictions for the AEW Women's Championship are Toni Storm winning Australia and Mercedes beating Toni Storm at All In Texas, with Chris Statlander chasing the title from Mercedes, likely winning by the year's end, maybe early next year. See what happens Wednesday night on Dynamite with the Casino Gauntlet. This was an old question, so obviously the prediction was that Toni Storm would, in fact, win the championship. And I do see Toni Storm winning in Australia. I am very disappointed, though, in the build for this. It's not being promoted as a pay-per-view, and apparently it's not even going to be live. Like, it might be on a very late tape delay because they have sports in the evening. Very disappointing. Like, this should be live. People in the United States should be able to watch it live early in the day, morning, whenever it is. And it should be a Max special. And they should really make a big deal out of it. Very disappointing. I don't know if the fact that they had to move out of the stadium to a smaller venue had something to do with it. But yeah, I'm let down, and I really think they should be doing more with this. But I do see Toni Storm winning, and I do see Mercedes winning the title, probably at All In Texas. Where do you go from there? I don't know. Chris Statlander could be that person. They could run that back, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think when Mercedes does get the women's championship, she'll be champion for a while. Thank you for that one. And now Psycho Jet Black sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Psycho. I appreciate it. Psycho says, it's going to be 174 days until All In Texas. Is Tony Khan really going to have Jon Moxley hold on to the title until he drops it to Scrubby Allin? I don't think so. I really believe Moxley will be dropping the title before that. We do have Revolution. We have AEW Dynasty. We have Double or Nothing. That's 3 pay-per-views before All In Texas, and probably Forbidden Door too. Actually, that might be later. I think they are doing that one later. I don't think they should wait for Darby Allin. Darby Allin's doing the Mount Everest climb, and hopefully he'll be okay from that, but that's a risky endeavor. I don't think Darby's the right guy, and I don't think you should wait that long. They really need to get that title off of Moxley. They didn't go with Hobbs, but I think they got to go with somebody like a Kenny Omega or Will Ospreay at this point. I would be very surprised if they waited and went with Darby Allin. I just don't see that happening at this point. But thank you, Psycho Jet Black. I appreciate the super chat. Now, let's get to this email from Calvin Bowman. Shout out to Calvin. Hope you're doing well. Calvin wants to know what's up with the episodes of Monday Night Raw on Netflix, because there's a lot of episodes that they haven't put up yet. Lots of years from the Attitude Era. He wants to know what's the deal. Well, the deal is putting this stuff on Netflix. It's a process. It's going to take time. And keep in mind, WWE still has the deal with Peacock. I do see Netflix gaining more content as time goes on, but you have to be patient. And if you do want all that footage, you do have Peacock for the time being. And just keep in mind, it takes a lot of time to get that footage transferred. So patience is the key here if you don't want to just go on Peacock and watch stuff. If you want to watch on Netflix, you might be waiting a little bit longer. Shout out to Sun Goshuaku. Great guy. Known him for several years now. Sun sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Sun. Much appreciated. Sun says, Triple H told you for the 2025 Rumble winners, select one guy and one gal on the main roster that have barely been utilized on TV. Who would you choose as shock wins? Now that is a loaded question there. So if I was going to go with a shocking men and women's winner, not one of the obvious candidates, who would I pick? For the women's side, I'm trying to think. This is a hard one to answer because there's a lot of good people. I'm trying to think like who they could push strongly. Braun Breaker might actually be my men's choice because I do think that they are going to do something with him eventually, and you do want to take advantage of his organic momentum. He's another guy that I feel they're not doing enough with, even though he's the Intercontinental Champion. They got him sitting in the crowd on Raw. Like, he should be wrestling as much as possible. They need to keep things hot with him. Braun Breaker would be my pick for the men. And for the women, Roxanne Perez would be a great choice this year. If they want to get her hot right out of the gate, Roxanne Perez would be an excellent choice. If they wanted to call her up, which I don't think they will yet. Sol Ruca is somebody I see a lot in. If they really wanted to go for a surprise, she would be the one. But a more fitting surprise, I think, would be Roxanne Perez. You know, she's coming up to the main roster, picking up a big win in her first, official main roster match, not coming in as a one-off while working in NXT. So yeah, I would go with Braun Breaker and Roxanne Perez as my top two picks that are not winning the Royal Rumble, especially Braun Breaker. Very unlikely, but I think I would like those two as potential shock winners. Great question there, son. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. Let's get back to the emails. Steve-O sent in this email. Shout out to Steve-O. Steve-O and son both in the Chicago area. Steve-O says, with the new WWE and TNA partnership, do you think we can expect to see some TNA talents hold WWE and WWE get some TNA titles? What would you think of John Cena breaking the world title record with belt number 17 being from TNA? How about Charlotte Flair holding the Knockouts title? I just wanted to say, first of all, I think that's very unlikely, highly unlikely in all likelihood. John Cena especially, and even Charlotte Flair too. Look, I think this is mostly a partnership between TNA and NXT. I would be very surprised if we see a lot of main roster WWE stars, if any, maybe AJ Styles, but I really don't see too many others actually showing up on TNA shows. Now, WWE is taking this partnership seriously so far. Triple H outright promoted TNA Genesis on his social media accounts. That's something. So never say never, but I think the likelihood is we might see an NXT star with a TNA title, or we might see a TNA star with an NXT title, but I think that's probably as far as it goes. I really don't see anything beyond that. So thank you for that. I do appreciate it very much, Steve-O. Thank you for the email. Now, Marshall Leonard sent in an email question. I will get to this one from Marshall. Marshall says, do you think Michael Cole will do commentary until he turns 70, similar to Jim Ross, or do you think he will retire soon? And also, do you think John Cena's retirement tour in 2025 will be his last run, really, or will he pull Ric Flair and wrestle until he's 80? Michael Cole, I see doing this longer than John Cena will. Of course, John Cena could always do things outside of the ring, but I truly believe that when John Cena is done wrestling, he's done wrestling. I think he's different than Ric Flair. He doesn't need to wrestle, and I think he's aware enough to know he can do other things. Ric Flair, his life was wrestling, but John Cena has moved on to Hollywood. He's got other things going on to keep him busy. Ric Flair just needed it. He needed to keep going, and he just couldn't step away. I think John Cena's in a different place mentally. So I do think Cena will be done once he retires. He won't be coming out of retirement. I think he is a guy who will stick to it. And Michael Cole, I could see Michael Cole announcing another 10, 15, 20 years. The fact that he's been around for so long in WWE, he's a lifer. I don't see Michael Cole ever leaving. Now, of course, we've said that about people in the past and they have left, but I really do feel like Michael Cole is a guy who will always be part of WWE as long as he wants to be involved in wrestling. So I could see him doing commentary another 10 years or so. He might transition into a part-time role or become a backstage worker and produce people. I could see him doing that. How old is he now? He's in his 50s, right? So yeah, maybe another 10 years or so for Michael Cole, and then he'll wrap it up. I think that's a safe prediction. We got some more super chats here, so I'll get to those. Hamp sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Hamp. I appreciate it. Hamp says, how long before WWE buys TNA and does a Rise and Fall DVD? That's a great question. WWE is a business, and you have to think that they have their reasonings for everything. We all like to look at it and say, oh, look, WWE, they've changed. You know, they're looking out for the little guys. They're helping TNA. But I think there's always a business reason behind everything. And there's value in that TNA tape library. A lot of wrestlers that made it big in WWE, like AJ Styles, they had significant runs in TNA. I think WWE would love to have that tape library one day. I could see it happening. We've all made the comments about TNA's never going to die, but one day if WWE bought TNA, I would not be surprised whatsoever. And right now, TNA is basically a second developmental league for WWE anyways. It's just a matter of when the people in charge of TNA decide it's time to move on. I think that's what it really comes down to. But yeah, if they ever decided to sell, I think WWE would be the buyer. Thank you for that, Hamp. And then Tiger sent in a €2 super chat. Thank you for that, Tiger. I appreciate it. Says, please fantasy book a John Cena heel turn and make it work. In order to do this, I would have had to have gone back to 2012 when people were sick of John Cena. Here's the thing. I would not turn John Cena when people are organically cheering for him. And he's selling tickets right now. If I'm a businessman, I'm not screwing with that. So it's just not going to work right now. But the perfect way to turn John Cena would have been that he kept getting frustrated, he was losing, and eventually he just snaps. And it would make sense because even the best of us, we have bad days, and sometimes everything sucks. Sometimes everything's effed, and you just want to justify ripping someone's head off. And then John Cena goes dark. He just takes out everybody, and he has that different attitude. He goes to the dark side. He embraces the hate. 2012. That's when it should have been done, when they were doing the embrace the hate. That would have been the perfect setup to turn John Cena heel. But now, it's not going to happen. The fans love John Cena, and he's selling a massive amount of tickets. Royal Rumble, they're close to 60,000 people. They're charging $300, $400, $500 for tickets now, for not even good seats. It's crazy. John Cena's not turning. They had the opportunity, but yeah, at this point, there's no need. And you want him to be winning for this last run, too. You don't want to be doing a storyline where he keeps losing and he snaps. Yeah. It's just too late to do it. The ship has sailed, as Ian pointed out in the chat room. All right, let's get back to the questions. Got one here. From TJS, shout out to TJS, says, how long do you realistically see this WWE Netflix deal lasting? I remember SmackDown debuting on Fox with 4 million viewers, only for the numbers to decline and Fox ultimately dropping WWE. How long until Raw ends up back on USA Network? What is it, a 10-year deal, something like that? But of course, things are subject to change. I think they're going to be fine. WWE is already doing well on Netflix. They're one of the top-ranked shows so far, both weeks. And as long as that continues, as long as WWE's in the top 10 on Netflix, you know, they're going to be good. They're going to be in a strong position as a top-ranked Netflix series. And with WWE's popularity and Netflix on the ring and everything, I think they're going to be happy with the deal. And to me, this is a game changer for WWE. And it seems like WWE's popularity is even continuing to grow with the Netflix move based off of ticket sales for events. I mentioned John Cena, but they sold out San Jose for Raw, and John Cena wasn't advertised. Roman Reigns wasn't advertised. The Rock wasn't advertised. I think WWE's just on fire right now. And, you know, of course, WWE's popularity could decline and maybe viewership might drop a lot on Netflix, but I think it would really take a lot for Netflix to want to get out of the deal. So I'm thinking they're in it for the long run. And if anything, I see there being a bigger chance at this point of WWE leaving NBC Universal and everything being under Netflix. Like I think there's a bigger chance of that happening than WWE leaving Netflix and having Raw go back to USA. I really do feel like WWE is going to be on streaming for the foreseeable future. I do not see them going back. All right, we got another email question here from Ian. Shout out to Ian. Ian said, honest question. I guess the other ones were dishonest. Maybe not. Honest question. Do you like the first 1983 Starrcade more or the first WrestleMania more? And he said he feels like both had their advantages, but he kind of prefers the first Starrcade based on the main event between Ric Flair and Harley Race in a steel cage and the last 3 matches on the card. He thought, though he thinks the spectacle and production of the first WrestleMania was better. Roddy Piper versus Greg Valentine in the dog collar match, that was better than any match on either show. That was a top tier match for its time, a classic, one of the most memorable matches of the 1980s. Having said that, I think I do enjoy WrestleMania more. Starrcade was a super card, but WWE took the idea of a super card and took it to the next level with the celebrities, with all the pomp and circumstance, with all the bells and whistles. Both shows have definitely shown their age. WrestleMania, you watch it, it's a bit slow paced, and some of those matches you wonder how the hell did these matches get on this card when you got like Tito Santana versus the Executioner as a WrestleMania match. You just think, what? How? But yeah, WrestleMania is still my go-to for nostalgia. But yeah, that first Starrcade was a great event for what it was. And yeah, the match that really stood out to me, the Ric Flair match with Harley Race, it was fine. It's not one of my favorites. To me, the match that really stole that show was the dog collar match. Piper stole the show on both pay-per-views. Let's face it. Shout out to Hamp Connell, who sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Hamp. I appreciate it. Hamp says, what are some John Cena matches we will see? And Hamp brings up one more match with Randy Orton and CM Punk, Cody, maybe Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles. What about another one with Kurt Angle? I do not see a match with Kurt Angle happening. Kurt's not wrestling. It's not a realistic possibility. He's even outright said he's done. I don't think it's going to happen. AJ Styles, if AJ even comes back this year, we don't know when his timetable is at this point. That one I think is a long shot. Not impossible, but unlikely. Seth Rollins, maybe if Rollins goes heel, that's the only real way I see that match happening. And I think they would need a good story for that. They could probably come up with something, but we've seen enough of John Cena versus Seth Rollins. Roman Reigns, same thing. We really don't need to see that match again. We'll probably see them interact at the Royal Rumble, and I think that's all we need. I don't think we need to see them in another match. Kevin Owens, same thing. We've seen a lot of him, so probably not. The first three that you mentioned, I think, are the most likely. Cody Rhodes, I think that's almost a sure thing. I would say if I was betting on it, it's 95% certainty that happens. Randy Orton, maybe. Depends on what they got planned for Cena. CM Punk, same thing. I really do think they're going to try to put Cena in there with some of the up-and-comers, like a Braun Breaker. I mentioned him earlier as a potential shock winner of the Rumble. They're going to put John Cena in there with Gunther. I think that's a safe bet. And maybe a couple others, but they're probably going to try to not do too much with John Cena and risk him getting hurt. What happens if Cena gets hurt? Does he push his retirement tour into 2016? Has anybody heard about that? Has John Cena said anything about that? Like, what if he gets hurt? What do they do because he's supposed to be back for the whole year? Does he tack on time like he's under contract to AEW and they add the injury time and he's got to wrestle into 2026? I don't know. But interesting question, Hap. I would say Cody is most likely of those names you mentioned. Shout out to the This Guy Experience, who sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, This Guy. I appreciate it. This guy says, who will be world champion by the end of 2025 for AEW and WWE? Bold prediction time. For AEW, I am going to say Will Ospreay. He's got to have his time, right? You brought him in. He's one of your top stars. I think it's inevitable he ends up being AEW World Champion. So that's my bold prediction. Will Ospreay will be AEW champion at the end of the year. Either him or Kenny Omega, one of those two will be champion by the end of the year, if I have to make that prediction. WWE, are we talking World Heavyweight Champion? Are we talking about the WWE title? And are we talking about who will be champion at the very end as the year comes to a close? In that case, I think we can rule John Cena out. Could be Roman Reigns. Could be Cody Rhodes being champion again. I'll take a wild guess and say that Cody wins it back and he's champion again. Either him, and this could be a very bold prediction, maybe for the World Heavyweight title, Braun Breaker is the champion. We'll see. But yeah, maybe Cody Rhodes. It's hard to say, and that's a good thing that it's hard to predict who will be champion by the end of the year. So thank you for that, This Guy Experience. I appreciate it. And This Guy Experience sent in another $2 super chat. Thank you for that, This Guy. Says, any spots open for the Rumble predictions? Add me, please. Well, we might have Mr. Tito on. Mr. Tito showed interest in it. I might be able to squeeze you on, but I have to see if I can do that, because I do want to keep it at 6, and I believe we already have 4. So if I add you and then Mr. Tito, we'll have 6 for it. So no promises, but I would love to have you on, This Guy, so I'll see if I can make it happen. You're definitely towards the top of the list. So thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. Much love. And thank you to everybody out there watching this. I very much appreciate it. We got a few more questions here before we wrap up tonight, so let's get to those. Jeremy Dorset sent in this email. Jeremy says, hey, Aaron, what are your thoughts on WCW not having the NWO and Four Horsemen, not having any official breakups like in 1999, and he brought up the Ric Flair heel turn, NWO 2000, and there's all these things they did that kind of just went nowhere. The problem was the writing, and they never really thought long term. They were always trying to pop that rating. Eric Bischoff, he always talked about the 83 weeks and how they beat Raw every week, and then in 98, he started hot-shotting. Once WWE ended the 83 weeks, they started getting desperate. Like literally the next week, they turned Bret Hart on Nitro and had him join Hollywood Hogan. Then they turned the Giant show. They turned him a few weeks later. And then Eric Bischoff goes on TV and challenges Vince McMahon. And then they give away their biggest possible pay-per-view match that could have made them a killing financially, would have been a huge financial success. They gave away Goldberg versus Hollywood Hogan on Nitro, and they never even bothered to do a rematch on pay-per-view. They did not think things far out. So NWO, they milked every last cent they possibly could out of that faction, but they had no end game. They had no idea how to give it a proper ending, which should have been WCW decisively beating NWO, so WCW looked cool. WCW won, and they never really did that. And because of that, people kind of saw WCW as secondary. You know, WCW was number 2 in the WCW NWO universe and never really got back to number 1 decisively. And with the Horsemen, same thing. I don't think they really had a game plan. It's just like, okay, we're breaking them up. That's it. You know, they would break up groups for no rhyme or reason. Sometimes there would be political issues. Like look at the West Texas Rednecks. They got over when they weren't supposed to because they were heels. And then they just were split up one day. No reason behind it. One day they were just not a faction. So WCW in a nutshell, they just didn't think things out very far. Got another email question here from TJS. TJS says, why do you think Chad Gable's American-made faction isn't being pushed? There are clear parallels to Team Angle, which thrived as tag team champions with Kurt Angle and his world title success. Gable has everything needed, so what's holding them back? I think what's holding them back is WWE has a very crowded roster. That's the problem, and it's WrestleMania season, which isn't going to help Chad Gable's causes. He signed his new deal, so clearly they see value in him, as they should. Chad Gable is a phenomenal wrestler, but he's also like 5'9", 5'10", whatever his height is. Might even be shorter than that. They called him Shorty G for a reason. So they're never going to push him as a top guy because of his size, which is unfortunate, but that's going to be working against him. If he was 6'3", I think he'd be in a much better position than he's in. I really do. And credit to him, because he got past that Shorty G gimmick, and he did the angle with American Made, and it's been good. And he's a solid talker. He's a great wrestler. But I really don't see him going beyond that mid card. And it's nothing against him. It's just the fact that they have such a crowded roster, and they got these other guys they're trying to push as top stars. Now, what's going on with the Creeds? They should be in a better position than they're in. Like, they should be built up with the Vikings, the War Raiders for the tag team titles, and the Creed should have like a nice run with the titles at some point. Like, what's going on with them? Why are they kind of just lost in the shuffle right now? If anything, they're the ones that should be getting the big push right now. So thank you for that, TJS. Now, Marshall Leonard sent in an email question. He wants to know if I have any bold predictions on who might retire in 2025 besides John Cena. Well, Jeff Jarrett, I guess that's not a bold prediction. I might actually make a bold prediction and say that unless somebody gets seriously injured, nobody. Because this year is about John Cena. If you're a WWE wrestler or an AEW wrestler who's considering wanting a retirement and wanting to wrap things up, why do it the year John Cena's retiring? You're just going to get pushed aside and be an afterthought. So if somebody's thinking, okay, I want to wrap this up soon, you want to wait till Cena's done. So I really don't see anybody retiring unless, of course, it's Jeff Jarrett, which is kind of silly considering John Cena's retiring, and that's what people are talking about. And they're really, if they are talking about Jeff Jarrett, they're talking about how this shouldn't even be a thing with this retirement run. So I'm going to say nobody, unless, of course, injury forces somebody to retire. In that case, that's unfortunate. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So there you go, Marshall. I appreciate that one, Marshall. And let's see here. We got another one from Marshall. We'll get to this one from Marshall, and then we'll wrap things up here. Marshall says, do I think Booker T will surprise everyone and return to the ring and have a match versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship in 2025? No. If Booker T wrestles again, it'll be the Royal Rumble. He'll come in, do the little one-off. I don't see Booker T coming back for any kind of a run. I truly think he's done. He's got his job. He's got NXT every week. He's on TV. He doesn't need to be wrestling. I don't really think he wants to. I think he's happy doing his own thing. But yeah, I'd love to see him in the Royal Rumble, though. And, they really could do something fun and have Booker T in there with Jacob Fatu. That would be fun. And Booker T gets his ass kicked by Jacob Fatu and thrown over to the top rope. I could see that happening. Booker T doing that, putting over Jacob Fatu. But beyond that, no. Booker T, he won't be going for any world titles. I think that's done. All right, we got one more here from Psycho Jet Black, and then I'll wrap up this stream. Psycho Jet Black sent in $2, and he says, do you have any crazy Airbnb hotel stories? Actually, pretty much every Airbnb I've ever stayed at has been good. I think there was one that was kind of okay, but usually they've been a positive experience. I have a cool story, and that's related to wrestling. When I went to the 2019 SummerSlam in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, we had a fantastic Airbnb. I wish I knew the name of it. It was like an apartment building, a tower, and it was right by the arena, the Scotiabank Arena, and the CN Tower, right there in the heart of downtown. And it was like 2 rooms. We had 4 people there, my wife and a couple friends. And, per person, it was like $70 a night. Great deal. And the views were amazing. I think I posted some pictures on social media back in the day. That was just an amazing experience. So I would say that was my all-time favorite B&B experience, and being in Toronto for that, just couldn't beat that. All right, Caleb Jacobs sent in an email question, so I'll get to this and then wrap it up. Says, hey, Aaron, I want a storyline with Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes where KO steals Cody's dog. That would definitely set Cody off. That's interesting. I don't know if Cody would go for that, though, just because it would maybe put the dog under unnecessary stress. Plus, the dog is not an actor. Like, if Kevin Owens took the dog might start wagging his tail, and that kind of takes away from the moment. And what could you do from that point? Like, you don't want to stress out the dog, but you also don't want the dog to look happy either. Does he put him in a carrier and we don't see the dog, and then he throws the carrier over a bridge or something? Or does he cook the dog and feed him to Cody Rhodes? Like, what do you do with that angle? Do you run over the dog like when Stephanie McMahon's dog got run over, Lucy, whatever that horrible storyline was? The bottom line is, I think there's probably no way to execute that storyline that would actually help the feud. If anything, it would make people laugh, and it would create a negative for the storyline. So I'm going to say they won't go there. It is a funny idea. They could do it with CM Punk's dog, but it was fine when Big Boss Man stole Pepper from Al Snow. It's just a goofy mid-card feud. But I don't think you want to do that with your main event storyline for the WWE title, nor do I think they need it. So yeah, I think it would be a challenge to make that work. But thank you. It's an interesting idea for sure, Caleb. Cody loves his dog, and that would be a great way to get some heat if you're looking at it in a kayfabe perspective. But on that note, I will go ahead and start wrapping this up. We're close to the hour here. Thank you all again for tuning in, and thank you to everybody that super chatted. Much appreciation. And thank you to everybody that emailed questions. If you liked the video, if you enjoyed it, the best way to help is simple. Give this video a thumbs up on YouTube. Leave a comment, your thoughts. You can answer any of these other questions with your own answer. And spread the word. Just tell a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way. Send a link to this video to your fellow wrestling fans. Anybody you know who watches WWE or AEW, send them a link to the video. It's very helpful. Just one person that comes on and watches, they become a fan, then they start bringing in other people. It's very effective, and it really does work. So if you could just take a moment out of your time and share the video, it would be greatly appreciated. So on that note, I will sign off for the evening. Say yes to NoDQ.com. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest wrestling news and rumors. And I will see you all next time.